Previously from episode 1. 3 weeks passed, and Zola's frustration turned to anger. Her father and mother, despite their initial concern, seemed indifferent to her torment. Her father, Chief Benson, was focused on his business, and her mother, though kind, simply didn't understand the weight of what Zola was going through. "Please, Daddy," Zola begged one afternoon, her voice shaking with emotion. "You have the resources. You have the power. Why won't you help me find Cato?" Her father, as usual, was engrossed in work, scribbling numbers on a piece of paper, as he looked up from time to time. "Zola, I've told you. There's nothing we can do about it now. He's gone. That's it." Zola's hands clenched into fists, her chest tightening with frustration. She couldn't accept it. She would not accept it. "You don't get it, Daddy," Zola said, voice breaking. "You're more concerned about your business and the contracts than the boy who saved my life. You didn't even hesitate to pay that ransom and sign the deal, but when it comes to the one person who risked everything for me, you just let him go, like he meant nothing." Her father's face darkened. "Zola, I'm doing everything I can for this family. You have to trust me." "No," Zola snapped, cutting him off. "I don't trust you. You gave away everything, including the only person who mattered. How could you award that contract, that huge sum of money, to those people who captured me? You're giving them everything and leaving the person who saved me to rot in God knows where." Her father rose from his desk, his face flush with anger. "Zola, you're not thinking clearly. This is about the future of our family. Not some street boy who did what he did out of desperation." Her mother, hearing the commotion, stepped into the room. "Zola, please, calm down. Your father is right. We've been through a lot. I'm sure Cato is fine, wherever he is." "No, Mom." Zola's voice cracked as tears started to stream down her face. "You don't understand. Cato isn't just anyone. He's my friend, and you all treated him like a piece of trash. You gave that money to the very people who kidnapped me, and now, you'll never know the truth about what happened to him." Her parents exchanged a worried glance, but they remained silent. Zola stormed out of the room, her anger now boiling over into a deep sense of betrayal. Every effort to find Cato, every call to the authorities, every plea to her family had been in vain. She was on her own. For the next few days, Zola's relationship with her parents was strained to the breaking point. She stopped speaking to them, too hurt and too angry to even look at their faces. They kept telling her that everything would be fine, that Cato had simply disappeared. But Zola refused to accept it. She went on a rampage, refusing to eat or sleep, constantly pacing the house and shouting at her father and mother to help her find Cato. She accused them of being blind to the suffering of the boy who had saved her, and risking everything just to get rich contracts. The constant nagging finally reached a breaking point. After a particularly heated argument one evening, Chief Benson slammed his fist on the table. "Enough," he yelled. "I've had enough of this. I'll look into it. I'll figure out where he is. But you need to stop this. You're wearing me down, Zola." Zola froze, surprised. For the first time, her father was taking her seriously. "Thank you, Daddy," she said, her voice quiet with exhaustion. "I just need to know the truth. Please, I need to know what happened to him." True to his word, Chief Benson began digging deeper into the situation. His initial reluctance faded as he began to see how important Cato was to his daughter, and as he recalled the worrying signs of the gang who had captured Zola, he realized that something didn't add up. Using his wealth and influence, he bribed local police officers, investigators, and even some members of the gang to get answers. He was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. 2 days later, Chief Benson met with a few low-level members of the gang that had held Zola captive. One of them, a man named Ibrahim, had worked for Amara and his associates. With a little money and a lot of persuasion, Ibrahim finally broke down and told him what had really happened. Cato, the street boy, he was clever, Ibrahim said. He tricked us. He escaped the night after you paid the ransom. He didn't want to stay in the hands of men like us. We tried to track him, but he was smart, he knew the city better than anyone. We lost him in the forest. Chief Benson's heart sank. Cato had escaped. He had freed himself from the same chains that had held Zola captive. The boy who had never known luxury, never known wealth, had shown more courage and wit than Zola's entire family combined. Zola's father felt a pang of guilt. He had paid the ransom for Cato's release, but had he really freed him? Cato had been so much more than just a street boy in his eyes now. Chief Benson's voice trembled slightly as he asked, "So, what happened to him? Where is he now?" Ibrahim hesitated before answering. "We don't know. He got away. But I can tell you this, Chief, that boy is no ordinary street rat. He's resourceful. He'll find his way. Maybe he's gone to another city. But wherever he is, he's free now." Zola's father left the meeting in a daze. His hands were shaking as he made his way back to his car. He had learned the truth about Cato's escape, but he knew it was too late. The boy had slipped through his fingers, just like sand. That night, Chief Benson sat down with Zola and her mother. "Zola," he began, his voice much softer now. I've found out the truth. Cato didn't disappear. He escaped. He used his wits to outsmart everyone. He's free, but he's gone." Zola's face lit up for the first time in weeks. "He's free. He's okay." Her father nodded. "Yes. He's okay. And I want to apologize. I should have trusted you. Cato is a hero, Zola. I can see that now." Zola's heart swelled with relief, but it was bittersweet. She had found the truth about Cato, but the journey to find him was just beginning. Zola's mind was set. She knew where Cato had escaped to, and if anyone could find him, it would be her. Now that her father had confirmed Cato's survival, Zola had a new sense of urgency. The fear that had weighed on her heart for so long was finally lifted, and in its place, a relentless determination burned bright. Cato was alive. She would find him. But the city was vast, and Zola knew she couldn't search aimlessly. She needed to be smart about it. She needed to catch Cato's attention, make him see that she had not forgotten about him. She enlisted the help of her father's senior driver, Samuel, who had worked for the Olo Wukia family for over a decade. Samuel was loyal, resourceful, and knew the city inside and out. He was the perfect person to assist Zola on this mission. "I'll drive you there, Miss Zola," Samuel said as they sat in the back of the car, Zola's heart racing with excitement. "But you've got to be sure of what you're doing. The streets are busy, and if you're trying to get someone's attention, it's going to take more than a simple flyer." Zola smiled, her eyes sparkling with confidence. "I'm not just leaving flyers, Samuel. I've got a plan." They drove to the exact spot where Cato had saved her. It was an alleyway near the market, a place where people were always bustling about, unaware of the life-changing events that had unfolded just weeks ago. Zola knew that if Cato was still in the city, this was where he would come. Once they arrived, Zola instructed Samuel to park the car at the far end of the street. Then, with a large bag full of posters in hand, she began the task that would become her mission. Zola began by pasting the vacancy notices for the post of a shopkeeper at a company called Zallo Enterprises. She chose this name carefully. It was a legitimate-sounding business, one that would draw attention, but wouldn't seem out of place. On each flyer, she wrote her name Zola Benson and included her phone number, knowing that Cato, being as clever as he was, would recognize it. She plastered the walls of the alleyway, the telephone poles, and even some of the billboards along the road. Everywhere she could see, Zola made sure her message was visible. She knew Cato would see it. He had a sharp mind. "Please, Cato, please," Zola whispered as she pasted the final flyer on a wall. "I know you'll find this. If you're out there, come back to me. Come back to where it all started." After completing her mission, Zola sat in the car, her heart pounding with anticipation. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. Would Cato see her message? Would he come? Samuel, ever the calm and collected driver, noticed Zola's nervousness. "It's all right, Miss Zola," he said gently. "He's a smart boy. He'll find it, don't worry." Zola nodded, but couldn't shake off the anxiety swirling inside her. It had been weeks since she had last seen Cato, and she didn't know what he had been through, or where he had gone. All she knew was that he was alive, and she couldn't let that chance slip through her fingers. As the minutes turned into hours, Zola began to lose hope. She glanced at her phone, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through her messages. But there was nothing from Cato. "I'll give it one more day, Samuel," Zola said, her voice filled with exhaustion. "If he doesn't contact me by then, I'll—" Before she could finish her sentence, her phone buzzed. Zola's heart leapt into her throat. It was a message. She looked at the screen, the words simple but enough to send a rush of relief through her. "Zola. Is it really you?" It was him. "Cato." Zola's hands were shaking as she typed her reply. "Yes, it's me, Cato. I knew you'd find me. Where are you? I've been looking for you." Minutes passed, then another message came through. "I'm at the corner of the street near the old fruit stand. I saw your flyer. How did you find me?" Without wasting another second, Zola jumped out of the car, her heart racing. Samuel, too, seemed to share her excitement as he quickly followed her to the location. They reached the corner of the street near the old fruit stand. The market was quieter now, as it was just before sunset. Zola looked around, her eyes darting from one person to another, until there he was. Cato. The boy who had risked everything to save her, the boy who had disappeared into the night to escape the men who had held them captive. He was standing there, looking slightly older, more weathered, but still the same Cato she had come to know. His sharp eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a smile that could light up the darkest corners of the earth, Cato walked toward her. "Zola," he said quietly. "I knew you'd come for me. I never thought I'd see you again." Zola rushed forward, wrapping her arms around him, holding him tightly. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Everything that had happened, the pain, the loss, the uncertainty, seemed to melt away in that single embrace. "I'm so sorry, Cato," Zola whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought I had lost you forever. You saved me. I should have done more to help you." Cato pulled back slightly, his hands gently holding her shoulders. "I don't need anything from you, Zola. You've already given me everything I could ask for." Zola shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "No, Cato. I owe you everything. You gave me my life back. I won't let anyone take you away from me again. With a look of understanding, Cato smiled. We've both been through so much. But now, we are free. And that's all that matters. As they stood there, reunited against all odds, Zola realized that this was just the beginning. She had found Cato, but their journey wasn't over. There were still many obstacles ahead, and they would face them together. Together, they could overcome anything. Zola looked at Cato, the boy who had saved her life and given her a second chance. She would not let him slip away again. They had both been through hell, but now, they had each other. And that was enough. Let's go to your house, Zola said, looking at Cato with determination. Cato's expression darkened immediately. He shook his head firmly. No. Never. Zola stepped closer, her eyes pleading. Yes, we will. I need to see where you've been living all this time. I want to rewind old memories, Cato. You know so much about me, but I don't know enough about you. Cato sighed heavily and glanced at Samuel, who had been watching the conversation unfold in silence. After a moment of hesitation, he finally gave in. Fine. But don't expect anything fancy. Samuel started the car, as Cato gave him directions. The drive took them deep into one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, a place where narrow, dusty roads wove through clusters of small, worn-down houses. Unlike the well-lit streets of Zola's luxurious neighborhood, this place was shrouded in darkness, with only flickering streetlights casting long shadows on the ground. When they arrived, Cato pointed to a small, dilapidated building with cracked walls and a rusted iron door. The windows were broken in places, and weeds had taken over parts of the compound. It looked abandoned, lifeless. Samuel stepped out of the car and gazed around in shock. He had worked for Chief Benson for years, driving through wealthy estates, living a comfortable life with a stable job. But standing here, seeing the conditions Cato had endured, something inside him shifted. He turned to Zola and whispered, Miss Zola. I have been taking my own life for granted. I complain about things that don't even matter, but look at this boy. He came out of this place with a heart purer than most of us who have everything. Zola nodded but said nothing. Instead, she turned to Cato and gently took his hand. Show me inside. Cato pushed open the rusted iron door, revealing a barely furnished room. A thin mattress lay in one corner, covered with an old blanket. A small wooden table held a lantern, a few books, and an old radio. The air was thick with dust, and the walls were lined with faded photographs, memories of a past that Cato had held on to. Zola sat on the edge of the mattress, looking around. She had never seen such living conditions before. It made her heart ache. Cato, tell me about your past. Everything. Cato leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. You really want to know? Yes, Zola whispered. Cato exhaled deeply before beginning. My father was a veteran soldier. He fought in one of the biggest wars our country has ever seen. He was a brave man, Zola, but war doesn't care about bravery. One day, he went to battle and never came back. They said he died a hero, but what does that mean to a child who lost his father? Zola swallowed hard, listening intently. My mother was a school teacher. She really tried to keep us together after my father died. But I had 3 younger brothers and 2 sisters, and life in the city was too hard for her alone. The little salary she earned wasn't enough to feed us. So, she had to relocate to the rural areas, where things were cheaper. She became a farmer, just to survive. Zola's heart clenched. And you? Why didn't you go with her? Cato looked away, his jaw tightening. Because I was the oldest. I couldn't let my siblings suffer. I had just finished secondary school, and I knew that if I went with her, I'd be another mouth to feed. So I stayed back. I started learning mechanics during the day and washing cars at night. I tried to keep this house because it belonged to my father, but I couldn't afford to maintain it. The tenants slowly left, one by one, until I was the only one left in this place. Zola felt a lump in her throat. So that's why you've been alone. Cato nodded. The streets toughened me. I had to fight to survive. I've slept on empty stomachs more times than I can count. I've been robbed, beaten, and betrayed by people I trusted. But I never gave up. I couldn't. My mother and my siblings were counting on me. A heavy silence filled the room. Zola wiped away a tear before it could fall. She had lived in a world of comfort, while Cato had fought every single day just to stay alive. Samuel, who had been listening in silence, cleared his throat. Boy. I don't know what to say. I've lived my life thinking I had problems, but now I see I've never known struggle the way you have. You are stronger than any of us. Cato gave a small smile, but said nothing. Zola reached for Cato's hand. You're not alone anymore, Cato. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Cato looked at her, his eyes filled with something unreadable. He had always believed that he was destined to be alone, that no one would ever truly care about him. But now, looking at Zola, for the first time in years, he wasn't so sure anymore. Cato was still trying to process everything, how Zola had found him, how she had stepped into his world without fear, how she had listened to his painful past without judgment. And then, she shattered every expectation he had. Zola turned to face him, her eyes fierce with determination. First of all, we are moving you out of this God-forsaken place. You are not sleeping another night in this place, Cato. I'll take you to one of my father's many houses and give you a flat to live in. Cato's eyes widened. Zola, wait. No, listen to me, she interrupted with urgency. We will demolish this place and, by God's grace, rebuild it in 6 months. Then, we'll bring your family back to the city. Cato blinked in shock. Zola wasn't just offering him a way out, she was offering his entire family a second chance at life. She continued, her voice softening. I can't wait to meet your mother and siblings. I know they will have good spirits like yours. Cato swallowed hard, his emotions tangled in a storm of gratitude, disbelief, and something else he wasn't ready to name. I will clean you up, Zola went on, send you back to school, get you financially strong, and then, she took a deep breath and held his gaze. I will take you to my father as my husband. Cato froze. Zola smiled at his stunned face and quickly added, that's the only promise that comes with a condition. Cato exhaled sharply. A condition? Yes, Zola nodded. You have to want it too. If you don't want to marry me, I'll never force it on you. But whether you do or not, I will forever be your friend. She stepped closer, her voice strong but tender. I don't need my father's consent to do all these things for you, except his consent to marry you. Silence fell over the room. Then, Zola turned to Samuel. Have I spoken well? Samuel, who had been standing still with his mouth slightly open, suddenly burst into joyful laughter. He placed his hands on his chest dramatically and bowed. That's right, he said with pride. You have spoken very well. Cato barely had time to react before Zola stepped closer. Without hesitation, she gently placed her lips on his, the softest, most unexpected moment of his entire life. His first instinct was shock. His second was warmth, deep warmth. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise, a statement, a moment that neither of them would ever forget. When Zola pulled away, she smiled softly. "If I never kiss you again in my life, this one I'll never forget." Cato stood speechless, his heart racing. Then, with a mischievous grin, Zola clapped her hands and shouted with excitement. "Action time!" Samuel chuckled, clapping his hands. "Yes, let's go." As they stepped outside, heading toward the car, Cato suddenly stopped. "Wait," he said. Zola and Samuel turned to look at him. Cato hesitated for a moment, then said, "I need to say goodbye to an old friend. The one who warned me that the kidnappers were after us." Zola nodded. "All right, let's go see him." Samuel started the car, and they drove off towards one last stop before Cato left his old life behind forever. Cato was still trying to process everything: how Zola had found him, how she had stepped into his world without fear, how she had listened to his painful past without judgment. And then, she shattered every expectation he had. Zola turned to face him, her eyes fierce with determination. "First of all, we are moving you out of this God-forsaken place. You are not sleeping another night in this place, Cato. I'll take you to one of my father's many houses and give you a flat to live in." Cato's eyes widened. "Zola, wait." "No, listen to me," she interrupted with urgency. "We will demolish this place and, by God's grace." Every single promise Zola made that night was fulfilled to the letter. Cato was moved into one of Chief Benson's luxurious apartments. His old house was demolished and rebuilt, and within 6 months, his mother and siblings returned to the city, reunited as a family once more. True to her word, Zola sponsored Cato's education, and 4 years later, he proudly graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering from one of the most prestigious universities in Nigeria. Through the years, their friendship deepened, their bond grew unbreakable, and their love, which had started as an innocent flame, burned brighter with each passing day. On the day of his graduation, in front of their family and friends, Cato went down on one knee, looked into Zola's eyes, and with a heart full of love, asked, "Zola, will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled Zola's eyes as she ecstatically screamed, "Yes. 1,000,000 times, yes." Cheers erupted, hugs were exchanged, and that day marked the beginning of a lifetime of happiness. They built a beautiful home, raised wonderful children, and loved each other fiercely through all of life's ups and downs. Years turned into decades, and their love remained as strong as ever. At the age of 87, Cato peacefully took his last breath, surrounded by his loving family. 3 years later, at 90, Zola joined him, leaving behind a legacy of love, kindness, and hope. Their story of a poor street boy and a rich businessman's daughter became a legend, inspiring generations to believe in the power of love, courage, and destiny. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video, and to hit the notification bell for more thrilling African stories.